Give a warm welcome to Kate.
Good morning.
Morning.
He said I could make myself at home, and I see they do it, so I'm going to do it. Before I start, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. My subject is not an easy one. My subject is not often welcome, even in our churches anymore. I want you to know, first of all, that I don't stand here under my own strength. I stand here because of Jesus Christ. I stand here because of His mercy, which means I didn't get what I deserved. And I stand here by His grace. That means He gives me that which I could never earn. And I could never earn what He's doing for me these days. I don't know how many of you remember there was a TV show back in the 50s, there's a few of us that have gray hair, you might remember, called I've Got a Secret. Unless you got your hair. I've Got a Secret. Gary. There was a panel, and they always had guests come on the show. And those guests had a secret, and the panel would ask questions to find out what that particular guest's secret was. Well, in my case, I too had a secret. But it was something I never wanted to share. It was something that kept me away from my family and my friends, because Satan told me I had done far more than could ever be forgiven. So when I say I stand here in God's strength today, I truly do. Her name is called Sarah Marie. She will never play in mud pies. She will never get to go to her first prom. And I will never have the privilege to take her shopping for her wedding dress. Because of my selfishness and because of the loss, I aborted her. I was 39 years old, married with 2 teenage daughters. The youngest we had adopted because I was told I could never have children again. We had purchased a flower shop and were doing very well in it. It kept me totally busy when I thought I had the flu. The doctor, I went to see what he could do to get me back on my feet and get going again. And when he said, "Hey, you're pregnant," I said, "Not me, I can't, you got the wrong person here. I had to adopt to get my second child." He said, "No, Kay, you are pregnant." Lady standing in the corner of the office who'd been observing said, "Well, lucky for you. You have a choice." Because my response was, "What on earth am I going to do with the baby at 39 years old?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, it's legal now, and it's not a baby yet. We've caught it in time. So all we have to do is set up 2 quick appointments, take care of the problem, and you'll never have to think about it again." It was inconvenient for me. It was legal, so it must be healthy for women. I went home and talked to my husband, and we agreed, although he didn't go with 100%, that it was the thing to do. As I justified my actions, I picked up the phone and made 2 appointments. The first would be for counseling and the insertion of a solution. The second would be the extraction. I went into the doctor, went into my counseling room, which was a metal table and 2 chairs. No plumbers, no windows, nothing. After waiting a few minutes, the lady came in, sat down, opened up a file in front of her. When they talk about choice, you think you're going to get options. I can almost do word for word what my counseling was. "And your name is Kay?" "Yes." "And we're talking about an abortion?" "Yes." "And your husband knows that you're here?" "Yes." With that, she turned the file around, pushed it across the metal table, and handed me a pen. And my little daughter, Sarah Marie, was condemned. They sent me down the hall to put on a gown before the solution. And as I was changing clothes of all the stupid things, they had a full-length mirror in the dressing room. And as I'm changing my clothes, I suddenly noticed a little bulge that I had never noticed before, because I wasn't supposed to be pregnant. And I remember placing my hand on my stomach thinking, if you're going to change your mind, Kay, you need to do it now. But it was legal, it was inconvenient, and after asking many times, it was not a baby yet, so I'd be okay. Put my gown on, walked down the hall, and crawled up onto their metal table. They inserted in my uterus what they call saline solution, which they don't use too much anymore because they've decided it's too inhumane. They said I'd be slightly uncomfortable, and that's all, and that was true. I went home for 2 days for the solution to do its thing, and then I came back on Friday for the extraction of the tissue that I no longer wanted. Again the gown, again down the hall, and again up on their table. God has really spared me a lot of the details of my abortion. But the part He didn't spare me from, the part that would haunt me for years, was after the extraction of her little body, and I was probably at least 4 months pregnant. Yeah. After the extraction of her body, they made the mistake of passing it in front of me so I could see her burnt little body. And although it had been uncomfortable for me, that saline solution literally burnt the flesh of my body, of her body, to her bones. And then they took her little body and threw it in a metal garbage can at the head of my table. And with that said, my life changed forever. I went hysterical. And the lady said to me, "Don't be so noisy, you're scaring the other ladies in the room." I said, "Can't help it. I'm sorry, I can't help it. What have I done?" She said, "If you don't be quiet, I'm going to give you a shot and send you home." And that's exactly what she did. You see, with an abortion, they have your money. That's what it's all about. It's the only medical procedure I know of that there's no follow-up for afterwards to make sure that you're okay. She gave me a shot and sent me home. For the next 2 days, I stayed in my room in a fetal position, sobbing my eyes out. My girls did not understand. What's wrong with Mom? But come Monday morning, I had to go back to the shop and act like nothing had happened. So I began to build a wall around myself to keep people at a distance, because if they ever found out what I had done, I had murdered my child. What would they think of me? How would they look at me? How would they react? Would they still be my friend? What would my family do? So I set everybody apart. I pushed my daughters away too. I had a wonderful relationship with my teenage daughters. But now, not them either, because how can you love 2 of your children and kill the other one? I started having nightmares in the middle of the night. I woke up to loud screams only to discover it was me. Because I kept hearing the say over and over and over. After which I find myself at the foot of my bed on my knees, praying to a God I knew wouldn't listen to me, asking Him if there was any way He could forgive me. If He could just give me another baby, I promise. God, I'll be a good mommy this time, I promise. I'll do everything right to just give me another chance. In fact, 2 years later, He did give me a baby boy. And I felt my problems were all behind, everything was fine. But you see, during those 2 years, I had walked away from my church. I walked away from God. I began doing some drinking, which I had never done before. I pushed my girls away. I hated myself. If you could see me now and see me when I was back then, you would not recognize the woman that stands before you today. In fact, I tried twice to kill myself. I hated me so bad and the pain was so deep. If I could just end the pain, it would be okay. Because God wouldn't care, and my family sure wouldn't. I decided I would kill myself, and twice I did not succeed. As you can see, I'm here today.
Amen.
But you know, at the time, I told myself I was such a piece of useless nothing that I couldn't even kill myself and do it right. You see, I have to seek it. And as I have traveled and talked, I have found that many people, just like me, have a secret. It may not be abortion. It may be porn. It may be theft. It may be adultery. It may be this. It may be that. But almost everybody, and I bet you if I pinpointed, everybody in this room has some time in their life, if you could just go back to that one time and just change that one decision, how much better your life would be afterwards. But unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. So, after not having been successful in committing suicide, I just kind of withdrew even more. Even with my son, although I loved him dearly. My husband and I would often fight, and he would often remind me that it was I that laid down on the table. It was I that brought the idea up. And although he agreed to it, somehow it always ended up it was all my fault. And I have to agree, it probably was. It ended in an ugly divorce when my son was about 16 years old, and he and I found ourselves single and alone. And I had noticed that we were living in an apartment, that the door of my apartment was getting rather heavy. When I saw people in the store or on the street, I would go the other way. I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to talk to them. But one day at work, things just came apart. You see, God sometimes has to break us, being a good stubborn German that I am. He has to break us so he can put us together and we can be whole. I began crying uncontrollably, and I told my boss I've got to go home. She looked up as if to say why, but when she saw my face, she said, okay. And I said, I don't know when I'll be back, and she said, call me. As I headed home, I knew that being a single mom, I couldn't depend on the child support. I couldn't be off work for very long. So I drove directly to my family doctor, who was not the doctor who'd done the abortion. When I walked in the door, the nurse took one look at me there in the reception area, and she said, come on back with me. She took me back to a little room, and pretty soon the doctor came, and he said, what on earth is wrong with you, Kay? And for the first time, it was 16 years, I said the word with the big A on my forehead. I said, I don't know, but everything is so heavy. I feel